music. So he knew that I come from new metal, and which I still bear that moniker proudly. I mean, we had some thinkers, but all eras do, right? But for me, there was so much inventiveness when new metal first came out. It was really remarkable.
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in our old friend Otep Shamaya of OTEP. Thank you for joining us today. How are you doing?
I am doing very well. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. Once again.
Yeah, three times for us. Our last time was quite a while ago. I'm going to say Webster Hall in New York City many moons ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in the meantime, a lot has happened in the world since we chatted last. You are on the eve of releasing your brand new album, The Godslayer. This is so epic. This is a mostly album of covers and a few choice original tracks with the OTEP stamp on them. And that's the place to jump in and start. I feel like you could have went any direction with this album. You've been working on this for quite a while. We had the whole global catastrophe and a whole bunch of other things happen, but you've been diligently working in the background the whole way on this. And so you've always done well with covers, and you've managed to make them your own, which I really like. None of them are ever wrote, like everybody can do a paint by numbers cover of anything, but like I love that you always make any song yours. So why these songs and why a covers album now?
Well, appreciate all your kind words. Thank you. Well, first of all, the label approached me during quarantine and asked if I wanted to do a covers album. They liked what I did with Royals. They liked what I did with Breed. They liked what I did with the Doors cover, Not to Touch the Earth, and the Rage cover, Wake Up. So it was quarantine, and not a lot was going on at the time, and had never done more than one cover at a time per record. So I thought, well, this might be a challenge. And they gave me a list of bands that they thought that I would do well at covering, but they were mostly like hair metal bands. And I'm no disrespect to anybody that likes hair metal, but I'm just not a fan. It's just not my style of music. I mean, if I hear a good song, I can get into it, but just wasn't my era. It wasn't my thing. And a lot of them were from Europe too, some of the bands, and I never even heard of them. So I agreed that if I could choose the songs, then I would do it. And they said, no problem, go ahead. So I sat down with Mike Plotnikoff, who I worked with on Generation Doom, with Howard Benson. He was one of the producers on that team. And I sat down with Mike, and he brought in a co-producer named Brian Spencer, who's just working with those two guys is a blessing in itself. I mean, they're both super talented. They're both incredible at what they do. I mean, Mike's ear is impeccable as far as tones. His ability for songwriting it's untouchable. And then Brian comes in, and he's a multi-instrumentalist, and he has this uncanny intuitiveness about all different types of genres of music. So he knew that I come from new metal, and which I still bear that moniker proudly. I thought that was one of the, I mean, we had some thinkers, but all eras do, right? But for me, there was so much inventiveness when new metal first came out. It was really remarkable. So he knew that I wanted to get back in touch with my roots, especially doing a cover album. I wanted to get back in touch with that, like what I listened to on Sevis Tra and what I did on that first record. And he's just got his claws into everything, metal, trap music, hip hop, old school, new school, everything. So, we sat down and decided what songs we thought we could do well as far as deconstructing and then reconstructing. And I do that based off of the lyrics. So I read the lyrics first, and if they appeal to me, if I can relate to them, then I say, okay, let's try this song. So every record is either a song that appealed to me well, all of them appealed to me lyrically, but they appealed to me in different ways. And some didn't need much deconstructing because they were inspirations of mine in the beginning. I didn't really have to touch them very much because I took from them already, like Slipknot. Slipknot's one of my biggest inspirations. And so when I covered Purity on this record, Corey Taylor and I and his wife Alicia were friends, and I actually reached out to him before I did the song, and I asked him, I'm like, are you okay with me covering this? And he said yes. And then if you look at like songs like California Girls from the Beach Boys, for those who don't know who the Beach Boys are, they're like a 60s surfer pop, really happy. Do, 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 do. But if you read the lyrics on California Girls, it's dark. And I mean, honestly, when I was reading it, I watched a documentary, I think on Netflix about, I don't know if that swayed my thinking or not, but I was reading the lyrics and I was like, my gosh, this seems like diary entries from some type of serial stalker or serial killer where he wants to take all these different pieces of women, dissect them and put them all into his hunting grounds in California. And so we tried to do it from that perspective, that darkness and that obsession, but also from the person that was seeing it that way. And so it is dark, has a little bit of evil in it, but there's also some seduction and obsession, and I think we capture that well. And then when it comes to like Eminem, he's been a big influence on me since he first came out, and I relate to that song lyrically quite a bit because of what the type of obstacles I face in the industry. So yeah, I am the way I am, and we wanted to add a bit of a big outro to the song because it just once we got to the end, it was like, man, this needs something else. So me and Brian and Mike sat down and we wrote this big thing, and then same thing with all the rest. I mean, we just went through one by one and decided like which songs do we think that we could honor and be an homage to, and that's what we did. I
Nice.
hope I
Thanks for
answered your question.
Oh yeah, thanks for unpacking all that. Yeah, I mean the Eminem track just dropped last week, and it's so fire. And it
Yeah.
seems like it almost matches Ostracized. Like almost those saw the cover and
Yeah.
the original complement each other so well. And I will say, as an Eminem fan, it's almost one of his hardest, rawest songs. I mean, like obviously he has some very complex, verbose lyrics and things across his whole career. But like The Way I Am is not an easy song, I would imagine, to cover for
No,
anybody.
no. Honestly, lyrically for me, that was the most difficult song to cover. Just because Mr. Mathers is, I mean, obviously he's a genius, and I mean, just not at lyrics, but also cadence, flow. Dude will come in on a 2, stop on a 4, start again on a 3. I mean, his timing is all over the place. His wordplay is amazing, and it was really, it was a big I was a little nervous to approach it at first, but I like challenges. So I just sat down and I had him in one ear and I was doing demos with my voice in the other ear. And I just panned him and I was just trying to mimic, as best I could, the great.
Word. And I like how, similar to your original material, you definitely inhabit the characters, and it's not just this straight rap, it's also like theater as usual, just like the whole OTEP aesthetic. And it's just hits so hard, and I love the metal part toward the end. It's so grimy. I love it. I'm so thrilled this thing, you teased it. I was like sneaking in on a little live you did on Instagram with your fans before the announcement came, and you teased a little of it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I can't wait to hear this whole thing. It's so killer.
You
Yeah.
snuck in on one of my lives. You didn't say hi, man. Come on, man.
I was there. I was there. I lurk.
All right.
That's how we get bits and pieces of news. We get bits and bobs from the internet. Outside
Investigative
of
journalism.
now we try. Somebody's got to do justice,
Somebody's
and
gotta do it. Yeah.
somebody's got to do it. Maybe it'll be us. Was there any songs that you wanted to put on the album that you didn't get to? I know permissions and rights fees and things are a legit thing and an issue these days. Was there anything you couldn't quite get to?
There was one other song that I wanted to add. It was a Nine Inch Nails cover, and it was just we were at the very, because of COVID with studio rules, we had, some days we were locked out because a couple of there's multi rooms in this studio, so some of the producers, one of them caught COVID, so they had to close the studio down. Then they had regulations where if you had people in a room, you had to skip a day. So we were just running out of time, and I came to them and I said, "Listen, just let me do this one extra song." And because I really believe we could do it well, but they wouldn't let me. So unfortunately, maybe on the next record,
All
because
right.
it was sounding really good.
I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it. Yeah, so I love that this music across this album is a cross section. Is not. I love that you shouted out the Beach Boys. I feel bad if people don't know who they are, but you never know. And I love the Billie Eilish track. That was the first single. You Should See Me in a Crown. Of course, another Nirvana song. You've talked lengthily in the past about how much Kurt Cobain means to you, and what a great show. Another just banger. I hope you play this one live too, like the others. Territorial Pistons is such a great song.
So good, and it's one of those songs that gets overlooked just because everybody listens to like the hits and stuff, and it's really one of their greatest songs, really is. And we try to do we approached it in a lot of different ways, but we really couldn't do much with it other than just try to honor it as best we can, and we just made it a little faster. And we know how much that Mr. Cobain loved punk, so we just went as dirty as we could with it, and just and so I really love that song, and I'm glad you do too. Thank you very much. And yeah, if I tour again, that will definitely be on.
Nice. I'm very hype about this new In Utero 30th anniversary
Yeah,
deluxe thing. It seems unaffordable, but like I'm gonna try to squirrel my little pennies away. It looks amazing, and yeah, just wild. I can't believe it's 30 years. It makes me
30
happy.
years.
It makes me sad. It's like,
Well, that's what great art
so
does, right? It lasts. I mean, people are still listening to Mozart, what, 300 years later. I mean,
right
or
on.
however long it's been. I don't know. But we still
Yep.
listen to classics, no matter no matter the genre, and the Beatles and the Stones and the Doors and now Nirvana, and other groups from that time period. I was such a Nirvana fan that I didn't listen to a whole lot else. And then I slowly, as after Kurt passed, especially, I started listening to everything that I could, and especially a lot of his inspiration. But yeah, thank you for that. We're excited about that song. And actually, that was Mike Plotnikoff, the producer. That was his idea. He liked that song a lot. He thought we could.
Right on. I love that you mentioned at the top here about new metal, which was a dirty word. I don't know why for a long time. You really came up in the second wave of new metal with Linkin Park and System and these
Yeah.
incredible bands. And now a ton of modern bands are pulling influence from new metal and very proud about it. A lot of different genres of metal, hardcore punk bands are bringing in new metal parts. And we just had the big Sick New World Festival in Las Vegas that I went to in May. And it
Mm.
was all these bands, but it was also really weird because it was also all these goth bands. And I used to feel like the goth kids would get picked on by the new metal fans, not the bands, because the bands themselves were goth kids who
Yeah.
became, rap metal artists. But like, it's not such a wrong thing anymore. And now here's this new album from you right at this time. It just happens to be good timing because I think it's like a time when a lot of people are going to rediscover you in a way that maybe you'll bring in some new people.
That would be great. I mean, that's what you want. You always want to expand your audience in the best way possible. Not, some people will do it to increase their wallet size. Not me. Mine's about spreading the message and reach as many people as I can. And the great thing about new metal, it wasn't just a fusion of rap and metal like Run DMC and Aerosmith. It wasn't just that, because they, Walk This Way was kind of one of the first, and then Anthrax, and I think what Public Enemy did it back in the 80s. But, you had they were bringing in, and then Korn was probably the biggest influence in that world at first, because they brought in funk and they brought in punk and metal and rap and whatever else Jonathan was doing on the microphone, which is amazing, singing. But also, I mean, like the Deftones, you have the Deftones, which were early on were considered emo, which is just because mainly because of Chino's screams and stuff. But the Deftones have a DJ, and not a lot of people know that, but that's because they brought that in. They were bringing in there was no taboo in that time period, which is really great. During the formation of new metal, it was about what are your influences and bring them in. And whenever we were writing the first record, my drummer, Moke, his name's Mark Destiny, but he goes by Moke because he's from Boston. He's got that accent, so it goes. Mark sounds like Moke, but he would, he could play anything. Guy could play jazz, and still can. He's having little health problems right now, but he still can play. But he would sit down, he would just start playing hip hop, or he would play a metal beat, or he'd play whatever. And then if I was in the room and it inspired me, I'd start either singing, rapping, screaming over it, whatever. And then the bass player would jump in, guitar player would come in. And there was never the only rules were there are no rules, just bring in whatever inspires you. And so our bass player at the time was inspired by Meshuggah and Hatebreed and all these bands like that. And he was bringing those influences in. The guitar player was inspired by pretty much everything. He could play blues, rock, metal, whatever. And he had played on some hip hop records in the past, as did the drummer Moke. He'd played on some beats for hip hop producers. So we were just doing whatever, and there wasn't anything taboo. And that's what made it so liberating. The genre itself started to cannibalize itself, and it became suffocating in a lot of ways. And some good music came out of it. I'm not denying it, but then they started denying what we did, as something that was authentic or genuine. And I never walked away from it. I never walked away from the moniker, and I still don't. It gave me a
Nice.
20-year plus career in this business, man, and 9 albums. So
Word. I had this conversation yesterday in another interview with a hardcore band that any band that does too well, there's some weird cultural clapback against success, especially other gendered people, especially anybody, that doesn't look like me. They seem to get a huge pushback from just a lot of hatred and vitriol, and the internet doesn't help. So, I'm always positive on promoting people who just pushing their own art forward and just being the best self they can be and doing the most good for everybody. That's what I feel like you have always done. And you've been very outspoken about causes and things, which has always been impressive. It's a very scary world. We're in a world where people are literally trying to kill you and don't want to let you have any rights. And I just, it's so hard to, we need to do more. I don't know what we can do culturally. I think politicians are letting us all down on every side. I'm not sure, how we come back from the last few years as a country or as a world. I'm deeply concerned about the future.
I'm glad you are. Not a lot of people are. And we just I actually think that if you actually look at the history of this country, we've come a long way. We have come a long way. The sad part is it feels like people want to pull us back, and that we're still having to deal with all this hate and vitriol and stupidity and ignorance and bigotry in the 21st century and the year 2023, when we all thought we'd be in flying cars or whatever, having colonies on the moon or whatever we thought, when we were kids. Yeah, it's a when there's a certain, I don't agree that, I will disagree with you respectfully, that both sides are letting us down, because I don't identify as a Democrat. I'm a liberal. I believe in liberal ideologies. Okay. However, there is one side of the political spectrum, and it has a name, and it does want to eradicate people like me, a gay woman, a gay woman who speaks her mind and is fearless. I'm not afraid of them. And so they have it in their heads that they would like to get rid of people like me, and people that don't look, and other people that don't look like me, but are in the same, that look more like you, and have your biology, right? And so, and in that respect, I can't acknowledge them in any serious. In another interview I did, and some of the hate bait sites took it to a whole nother level just so they can get clicks. But basically, what I said was I miss the old days when I could actually have a legitimate argument with someone who was on the other side of that, who was a conservative but wasn't a bigot. They just had different beliefs on small government and the size of our budget and military spending, things like that. We could argue about that. And there were some cultural things too, but it never got to this level. This is the level that it was back when Harvey Milk was, getting elected in San Francisco. This goes back to, if you look at the LGBTQ community in America, we've only been full citizens since Barack Obama was president. So literally, because we did not have the right to marry. We couldn't be out and serve in the military. There were certain places where you couldn't be out and you could be fired, and now that's come back. That's been leaked. That's the states' rights and all this nonsense. And that's where it becomes an issue for me, because my family's military, and my family is law enforcement, which I know that's probably surprising a lot of people. I am the weird one in the family, I guess, by those social standards. But before that, it was taxation without representation. And back then I used to say, if you're not going to give me the same rights as everyone else, then don't tax. I don't want to subsidize your heterosexual lifestyle. And if you want to build a wall, then build that wall between church and state, because that's where the problem lies. People are basing idea that we don't have the right to exist in the LGBTQ community because of their moral standards, not because of what the Constitution and the Bill of Rights guarantee me. Sorry, that's my dog, Sir Francis Bacon, and
Nice.
He's protecting the territories. He does this every time I do an interview. I love it. Come here, buddy. Hey, you want to be famous?
We want all the pets in the interview, so that's fine with us.
Come here, son. Come here, buddy. Hey, come here. How are you?
Oh, adorable.
That's the trick. That's the trick. Everybody thinks he's adorable till he's eating their face still.
Oh,
right, son? Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
That was fun.
He just wanted to get on camera, man.
Yeah, these are tough times, and I'm glad that you've remained outspoken. And listen, we've had those conversations, you and I, in the last interview. The media is good to media. I think sometimes the media does what it does. unfortunately in the business of attention. I try to, as the main news person here, what we do, we try to keep it at an even keel and not do sensationalism, but also
Thank
we're also, we're like a DIY band ourselves. I often say we're trying to get attention against Blabbermouth and Loudwire and Pitchfork and stuff. But I do feel like, or let me ask you the question: do you feel like you've ever been, maybe particularly been painted unfairly by the major music media?
you. That's the short answer. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about new metal earlier, right? I wrote a song on Generation Doom called Down, and I had a lyric where I said, I'm the one that they love to hate. And I truly don't understand it. I've given 20 years of my life to this industry, this aggressive music industry. I do the best I can. I fight for what I believe. I write and fight for what I believe in. And if that offends people, then I'm sorry, then don't listen to me. You don't have to. Nobody's forcing you to come to my Facebook. Nobody's forcing you to come anywhere. But it seems like anytime that, especially if there's a woman and she has an opinion and she's not out there showing skin and all that, then she's immediately put on the chopping block. And like people have these rumors about me that I hate local bands. Then why do local bands play at my shows? There's rumors about me kicking bands off tours, but they bought on to my tour 3 other times before that. So if I was so terrible, why did they buy on? Why did they pay me money to be on my tour three times before that? People, but people just they want sensationalism and they want a villain. And so at this point in my career and in my life, my eldest brother passed away a year ago, a year and a half ago, and from that pain and grief and everything, I just learned I don't give a fuck about what strangers think of me. They weren't there when I was in the studios. They weren't there when I was writing the songs. They weren't there when I was on tour missing my godchildren grow up. They weren't there with all the sacrifices and everything. They're not there having their name. They're anonymous behind a screen, whereas I'm putting myself out there. Son, not now. Okay, defend me later. Thank you very much.
I am sorry for your loss, and I hope that we have been honest and kind about any coverage we've given you and anybody actually out there. And if we haven't been, anybody watching this, if we haven't been kind to you for whatever reason, come at us and we'll talk it out. Just for a last thing, OTEP, this has been amazing and thank you. I got to see you live back in May. First show of the tour. You'd only played a few shows in a couple of years because of everything. Fire show. It was amazing. New song hadn't come out yet. And you put together a killer live band, and I know the state of touring is crazy right now. Do you have some plans where you can get back out on the road and bring these new songs out as well as the old ones?
Not yet. No, we don't have any plans yet. But thank you for your kind words. We really worked. I got to give it up to the touring musicians. They really put in the time. They really put in the work, and they really worked really hard to give the fans. Because it had been last time I played on U.S. soil. I did a tour in Europe in 2019, but 2018 was the last time I played in America. So it'd been whatever 4 years since I'd actually played, and so we went out. And it was amazing. It was like I would never been gone. It was really great. The fans are amazing. We played a lot of songs. It's the 20th anniversary of Sevastra and it's the 10th anniversary of Hydra. They're doing a re-release of Hydra on vinyl, which I'm really excited about. It's a big busy year so far. I got a new record coming out and they're re-releasing Hydra. But we played we played some songs off that as well, and it melded so well together. And it was a really great tour, and we had a lot of fun, and I was really really proud of the band. The hardest thing for if you've been to my show, so you know that we do like these interludes and things in between songs that kind of they're spoken word and soundscapes and stuff, and they're supposed to set up the next song. And that to me, unless they're jazz musicians, a lot of times that's really the hardest part to teach musicians is improv, especially if they're used to just playing what they've learned. And so, but for these musicians, they latched onto it really quickly, and I think we came up with some of the best stuff I've ever played live, and it was a lot of fun. I was glad you were there. You should have came by. You should have said hi.
Yeah, for sure. We've had our interactions. We met in person a few times. I appreciate you. I think you punched a hole through the ceiling at Old Ironsides. It was like a very short ceiling. You're on your riser, and you kept japping the ceiling. It was hilarious. Yeah, great show, great show. And the fans, everybody I talked to, they got what they came for. So it was really amazing. You know, I wish you the best with the Godslayer out on Cleopatra Records September 15th. And,
Thank
you know,
you.
best of luck to you. I hope you get back on the road, and maybe next year some of these new metal bands or these new metal festivals will consider OTEP and give you your place among everybody else where you belong.
I appreciate you. Thank you.